Yeah, you're on mute, Abhijeet.
Throw it open to some questions the participants have brought as well. On that note, the objective of this webinar is for all of you who are in this webinar to understand what is it that you can go away and do after this webinar in order to look at reviving, kickstarting, restarting your hospitality business. I'm going to start with Abhijeet, who's the speaker. So Abhijeet's bio for all of you. Abhijeet is the CEO of Eco Hotels. It's a company based out of London and Mumbai, and it is the first carbon neutral hotel brand of its kind. We are the first two hotels are expected to be opening its doors in first quarter of 2022 in the UK. Eco Hotels is excited about the opportunity in the Indian market as well, and is looking to launch operations in the mid-market and the Abhijeet divides his time between India and UK. He has extensive experience in hotel consulting, having experienced the entire life cycle of hospitality assets. He's gained invaluable insights that give him the vision, analytic adeptness, and strategic ability to carry out individual products confidently. And he is here to talk to you about what are the main theme today is what constitutes a good survival strategy to get past the initial low demand phase. And I think that's a very important one. To shut it down or to stay open, key confidence building measures, and surviving the war of attrition. So without any further time being taken, Abhijeet, over to you. I will unmute, and as soon as you finish, I'll come back to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, Suchit. Good evening, everybody. Greetings from a warm and sunny Mumbai as well. Just like Singapore, Mumbai is also quite warm. So thank you for gathering here. Essentially, we all are very curious to know from the situation we are in, what's next? The times are fairly uncertain, and actually the present times look a bit bleak. That acknowledged, let us look forward and not backward, and look at how we can survive the immediate few weeks and then thrive and prosper later. Because, I mean, what's sort of unheard of in the recent past, last couple of decades at least, is that the demand has never got flattened the way it has got flattened currently. But, you know, the times are strange, and strange things are happening around with you, which hopefully will allay some. Where is that? Okay, so this is a video that went viral in the on the internet on 7th or 8th June. I downloaded it on 8th June. This is a street scene of Paris. Would you believe that this was on 8th June that the Paris was like this? So what this video definitely tells you is that the demand is there. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my controls. Okay, yeah. So what this video tells you definitely is that the demand is definitely, demand definitely exists, and it is only not visible to us in the way it was before. What has happened is the lockdown and the uncertainty and the risks with COVID has acted like a sort of pressure on a spring, which has compressed and flattened the demand. The moment this artificial pressure on the spring goes away, the demand is definitely going to spring back, and it's going to spring back like never before. We've heard of the concepts of revenge shopping that happened in China a couple of months ago when they opened their lockdown and stuff like that. Same is going to happen with us. So there are other data trends that prove that all is not bad, all is not so bad as it seems. Like since we are on the example of China, China is now back to the mid-January levels, when just before the lockdown, when the flights, etc., were getting cancelled. China has already achieved occupancy levels, which I believe are at break-even levels, break-even operation point levels. The recent Memorial Day weekend, which is the last weekend of May in America, is a big holiday. it did see a surge in resort demand. Although the airlines were not operating, the resorts did quite well. People drove across 3 states to go to their favorite places. So these are very encouraging trends, and all we need to stay is we need to stay in, we need to stay put, we need to stay positive and look forward. The webinar, of course, is more about how do you win the confidence of the customers and attract demand. So the demand has not gone. It is just we have to bide our time and see how long how long before it returns, and then we have to stay. We have to survive and also stay relevant to our changed. I referred online to what's the simplest meaning of a hotel, and it's described as an establishment providing accommodation and meals and other services to travelers and tourists. This definition, you'll all agree, is quite narrow in scope because hotels are expected to cater to the basic human needs of food and shelter, but in a safe, hygienic environment, and while doing so with style and panache, and plus much more to differentiate each other from other players. So essentially, hotels sell a good night's sleep, which is not possible if you don't feel safe and sheltered. And even now, the customer expects that good sleep, but is looking for a little more. What is that little more? The customer is looking for a perception of safety and hygiene in the hotel in these aggravated times. So the battle for perception will be won by establishments which are providing clinically clean and hospitably warm guest experience. Communication is the key in this. Am I audible? Okay. So communication is the key in this, both to the internal and external customer. Some of the panelists will talk about how to deal with the internal customer, and some others will be talking about the external customer. So hygiene and safety of establishments is very important. There are a lot of SOPs floating in the market about what are the 10 or 20 or 50 steps we have to do to sort of achieve the hygiene levels that are required, which are safe for our co-workers as well as for our guests. But what is really important as well is not only to do what you're doing, but also to be seen that you're doing it when the guests are entering or people are passing your hotel. There should be a perception that a lot is being done to take care of the basic steps that will enhance the safety and hygiene of the place. And even more important is to tell the world that you are actually doing what you're supposed to do and more than that. So this is a battle as much as of other operational aspects, also of communication and image and reputation management. David Ogilvy once famously said that doing business without advertising is like winking in the dark. Only you know you did it. No one else saw it. So please get back in touch with all your customers, all your distribution channels, and share through social media or whichever other way, whichever is the most efficient and cheap method about whatever is it that you're doing to make your hotel safer and better, and so that your end customer gets to see it. This is one simple, cheap, effective way of probably building confidence. While doing all this, the various establishments will need to look after their own survival in terms of cash flow. So there need to be revised expectations in terms of what is a good performance of a hotel. For some, it might be just to survive one more day. For some, it might be to survive a year or a couple of years. It depends. But the point is, the key is that the expectations have to now be reset in trend with the current times and for next 3 or 6 months, and then for a year, and then the medium and the longer term. And the essential to survival is going to be cash flow. So there are certain financial costs we have to endure operationally, which might not be compromisable because of enhanced hygiene levels. But there are other costs which go into the fixed cost of a property, like they could be lease rentals or they could be debt, and these cash flows can be managed with some negotiation and creative cash flow management. So these are other avenues that one has. So this is what I had to say basically to open my presentation and to share with you is stay in, stay positive. The demand is around the corner. and just there is this little wall of attrition which is going to be there for unfortunately we don't know what's the time period of certainty while this uncertainty lasts, but we have to just prolong and extend our cash flow by either compressing our operational costs, etc., and then move on, and things will get better sooner than later. My other panelists are now looking
Right, I think, Abhijeet, thank you for that. That video was most interesting. I'm actually pretty surprised to see Paris in that light. It definitely is not like that in London at the moment. We are opening up from the 15th, so hopefully that should see the crowds out again. So thank you. That's very inspiring. I think for everybody to know that the demand is compressed, not being evaporized, so it should bounce back. Is what we've just heard there. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Chris George, who's a co-founder and CEO of Cube Health. Chris George is Cube Health is India's most respected workplace healthcare management company. Under his leadership, Cube Health has helped over 100 corporates across India to manage the health of over 100,000 employees every year, with the goal to cross 1 million employees by 2022. A tech and internet industry veteran educated in Mumbai, Texas, and New York, Chris is the foremost voice when it comes to helping employers create healthier employees. And as the current pandemic rages across the world, Indian companies have been working with him and his team to ensure they create a healthier workplace and care for the assets that really matter to any business, its people. Chris's main theme is taking care of employees' health is a good back to business strategy. And he's going to be talking about how the employees' health is critical to ensure that we can. So over to you now, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Suchit. Thank you, my colleagues, and thank you all the participants. It's a pleasure to be a part of this. I must say, I hope it were under better circumstances than right now, but perhaps circumstances are always right to talk about your team's health, your employees' health. We were having this conversation with a lot of companies in the hospitality and food services industry, even before the pandemic hit. At least it hit the shores of India. And the conversations were driven around how they need to care for and invest in the real assets that matter, that are their employees and their health. Most companies, at least in India, for them, investing in employee health has just been a checkbox. They would sign up to a group health insurance policy, or they will conduct the mandatory Food Safety and Standards Authority of India health checkups for some of their employees, and kind of leave it at that. Unfortunately, as the pandemic has hit, we all realize and we know that this virus is transmitted by the human. And unless we take care of those assets that are unfortunately the transmitters of this virus, we're never going to be able to provide safety and assurance to the employees that come back to work. And if you cannot provide safety and assurance to the employees that come back to work, how do we expect to provide that safety and assurance to our customers so that they can come back to your respective establishments? And that is the theme of what Cube Health has been doing. We've been working with companies that have realized that this is a necessary investment, and they believe that by investing in focusing on employee health, they are setting the stage for their businesses to kind of bounce back as the lockdown ends in phases across the country. And some of the best brands that we've been working with right now have already started seeing positive results with the healthy workplace certification that we've been providing to their businesses. So I'll talk more about this particular topic as our conversation progresses, but Suchit, back to you.
Thank you for that. Now, I think it goes without saying that people are the biggest assets. We definitely need to be looking at how they play a role in this. Moving on to the next speaker, Shreenath Shastry is the General Manager of the Hospitality Services of Wipro. In his current role, Shreenath and his team are developing and implementing global post-COVID travel policies for Wipro. He brings invaluable customer perspective to the webinar and addresses the demand side of concern. For those of you attending this, Shreenath's department is Wipro, in fact, is one of the largest hotel bookers in India. So it's good to have you here today, Srinath, just to understand what are you as an institutional client thinking about in terms of hospitality and hotel room buying post-COVID. So over to you.
Thank you, Suchit. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here for this webinar. I think it was something which was quite overdue, and I was very happy when Abhijeet approached me and said that he had plans to host a webinar which is intended to not only give a perspective of confidence to the participants, but also to speak a little on the positive sides of what lies ahead of us. So taking a cue from what Suchit mentioned, a quick introduction. I've been with Wipro for the last 7 years now. I head the global hospitality vertical for Wipro, and we do consume quite a few room nights. But more than that, my background is that of a hotelier. So there's a very high level of empathy with which I can relate to this current pandemic and the effect that is having on the hospitality industry. And so one thing which comes to mind, and that arises from the fact that for the first 17 years of my career, I've been in sales and marketing, where I was selling hotels. The next 6 years, I was a hotel broker. So I had visibility of both sides of the story. And now I'm buying for a company. So, I've got a little bit of perspective from all the sides. So let me take a couple of steps back and go back to the time when I used to sell hotels. And there is a lot of empathy that I'd like to bring on the table so that you can feel that the difference between what is the sad fact now and what has been there in the past. So let me draw a timeline from a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term perspective. So I can't help but remember, and it's a publicly available fact, that the Grand Hotel, back when now it is the Oberoi Grand in Kolkata, when it was launched in the 1911, 1912, around that year, was a hotel which was never developed as a hotel initially. It metamorphosed into a hotel. And in the year 1937, 38, around that time, it was shut down due to a typhoid pandemic. And it took about 5 years for the hotel to reopen under the new owner, that is Mohan Singh Oberoi. And well, you'll be surprised to know that immediately after that, and it opened right in the middle of the Second World War. So how did that hotel survive, especially from a first generation entrepreneur who had to generate the kind of funds? I'm sure there are quite a few participants who are hotel owners here and who would probably know about this story. It was actually converted as a billet for World War II soldiers. Almost 4,000 soldiers were living in Oberoi Hotel during that time. It passes off as an anecdote, as a story, but I can't help but imagine the ingenuity of Rai Bahadur Mohan Singh Oberoi, who had the guts and the gumption and the positivity to approach the armed forces and propose it to be a billet for the armed forces. I'm not saying that every hotel should be turned into an army barrack, and neither would one wish a war during a pandemic. But what I'm hinting at, and in no means am I going to recommend that, but please understand that in the last 1 week, and I'm also a part of the BCP committee for Wipro, which is basically the business contingency plan, where we are responsible for relocating and allocating accommodation for employees, irrespective of whether it's a hotel or not. There are quite a few employees who have been returning back by chartered flights and by government flights. And they're supposed to be quarantined for 7 days in an institutional quarantine and 14 days in a house quarantine. Where are they being quarantined? There are 86 hotels in Bangalore, totaling 8,000 rooms, which have been contracted by the government. Now, the fact of the matter, it's not really a good revenue stream, a great revenue stream, but that is survival. So that is what I would like to talk about for the short term. It's not the only means of getting business. There are other means of getting businesses. There are PG accommodations which have been emptied literally overnight. And there have been hosts of employees, single employees who are living in very, let me say, cluttered co-living conditions, who are out on the streets, and we had to find accommodation for them. So while sadly, from one side, there is a dearth of demand from the industry at this point of time, for the industry at this point of time, it's a strange coincidence that the people are looking out for accommodation. And can you imagine apartment complexes allowing hordes of young professionals to suddenly jump into accommodations there? No, it's not going to be that easy. So can this be substitutes? Maybe. And that's a thought I would like to leave with the audience. And that is something which can be debated. No one would like to have hotels converted into quarantine facilities, co-living facilities, because there is a certain romanticism with hotels, which I'm sure people on the panel, Abhijeet, I'm sure will understand this. There is a certain amount of romantics associated with a hotelier. No hotelier would like to see this. And I'm sure Ibadan Mohan Singh Oberoi did not like to see his hotel getting converted to a billet for 4,000 soldiers in 1943. But it happened, and they survived, and they survived for a better future. So there is a short-term strategy, there has to be a medium-term strategy, and there has to be a long-term strategy. As we go around, I'm sure there will be some questions which will tilt towards medium-term strategies, and I'll answer those questions from that perspective. From a long-term point of view, I think it's more to do with the demand, supply, and the macroeconomic situation which countries see nowadays. As a buyer, I can tell you, the past 4 years have been especially good for the hotel industry in India, and even in a lot of grade A cities across the world. Rates have been steadily going up, occupancies have been going up. In a single belt in Bangalore, which is called the Bellandur belt, the average room revenues have gone up beyond 8,000 rupees for a mid-segment hotel. Now that has completely got diluted, I understand, but the demand is there. It's not going to vanish away overnight. The nature of the demand has changed. And how we prepare ourselves for the nature of this demand is something which we can talk in detail a little about. The nature of demand has various phases. One is the room, which people occupy. The other is the F&B. I know for a fact that captive inventory, when there is captive inventory, when you've occupied multiple rooms in a hotel, there is a chance that corporates, and I can speak for it because I myself am in that position where I do look out for these facilities, would like to assume that one doesn't need to go out to have food. What is the percentage of F&B assigned to each room in a hotel? Especially in A-grade cities, people don't expect guests to have anything more than a breakfast. And their 1:2 or 1:3 F&B ratio comes basically from walk-ins. That could change. The cover turnover ratio can change. Now, these are the things which one needs to be prepared against. Can we ensure that those guests who are in-house can be captive guests as far as even their F&B is concerned? This is the medium-term strategy that I'm talking about. From a long-term perspective, hotel business, we all know, is a cyclical business. And Abhijeet, I'm sure, will also agree with me. We've been in the demand-supply situation where suddenly there is a huge demand in a city, and hotels are owned by developers, run by hoteliers. Developers suddenly decide to launch 4, 5, 6 hotels in a span of 2-3 years. The phase of construction is between 4 to 5 years. So by the time the demand has expanded and the supply expands to the level that the demand offers it, it takes about 4 to 5 years. And we've seen a demand hike about a couple of years ago. Going from now onwards, it's anybody's guess as to how many developers would like to build a hotel in the near future. So those hotels which are already existing, in my view, have a better chance to compete with lesser inventory in the future. I don't see too many new hotels coming up. But there's a huge opportunity for existing hotels to be rebranded. And those companies and those brands which have the capability to rebrand hotels and maintain the kind of demands that the customer will have now will face a better chance to succeed in future. So I've tried to cover in a timeline of a short, medium, and long term. And it's a huge subject. As we go ahead, we'll try to do justice to some of the questions which will come forth. I'm happy to contribute. Thank you. Over to you, Suchit.
Thank you, Shreenath, for that. That's useful. I'm sure there will be quite a few questions coming through later in the webinar. Moving on to Kumar. Katra is the founder of Cuisine and Cloudkitch, a unique and flexible co-working kitchen solution for delivery restaurants designed to simplify the restaurant business and help scale faster. Prior to this, Kumar was the president of business development at Mobicon. Kumar has several firsts to his credit with top-notch brands, Taj Hotels, McDonald's, Compass Group, and Sodexo. He's been trained under eminent industry leaders, provoking his thought leadership and contribution to the hospitality sector. He's passionate about innovation and futuristic technology, believes in enabling productivity and profitability. He shares his expertise in the food and beverage business as an operator, marketeer, and innovator. The main theme that Kumar can touch upon is discussing shared economy, the economics in a changing world. And I think it's quite interesting to see how in that survival mode that Shreenath mentioned and garnering the demand that Abhijeet spoke about to understand where the hospitality industry can be sharing resources. So over to you, Kumar.
Thank you, Suchit. That was a lovely introduction. I'm going to share a quick presentation and walk you through some of my thoughts. I'm here today to share some perspectives on how this industry has functioned over the last couple of years, what's happened during the previous economic crisis, how people have understood the changing dynamics of the industry, and what's going on in current situation. I'm going to just provoke a few thoughts on this conversation. Essentially, I'll share with you what we have done as a business to keep alive, keep ourselves kicking and running. So I'll go through quickly. I've spent most of my time in food and hospitality business. Last 3 years, I've been an entrepreneur in F&B tech space. While I was in F&B tech space, I realized that we had 5,000 restaurants on the platform, almost 30 million consumer profiles. The restaurant industry was shifting gears while the restaurateurs were not willing to shift gears. And what does it mean is that traditional restaurants remain traditional. They believe that they could run one outlet and 100 outlets the same way. Fact is that it's not true. When you are owner of one restaurant, you know every customer by name. You know Abhijeet, you know Suchit, and you know Chris and everybody else who comes to your restaurant. But when you own 100 restaurants without technology, it's not practical to understand who your customers are. Now, during that time, I also realized that the restaurant industry might shift to cloud kitchen business or dark kitchen business. And why was that happening? It was not because of COVID. It was happening long ago. It was happening because internet consumption dramatically shifted in the last 3 to 5 years. If you talk of India particularly, post-Jio, the internet cost became negligible. Today in India, you can buy internet for 299 rupees or $3 for entire month and unlimited consumption. And that changed the way consumption happened on e-commerce. That changed the way people were buying on whether it is food or whether it is groceries or whether it was fashion. So everything was being consumed on internet. That's what changed the way people were buying any kind of buying pattern. What also happened was Netflix. Netflix was responsible for killing the restaurant industry in US. And why is that? Clearly because people were sitting and watching movies, ordering popcorn and Pepsi, so there was nothing left to go out for. and they were ordering on Amazon. So what would they go to a mall for? That was changing, and it was quite evident, but restaurateurs would not understand that and refuse to believe in that. Let me take a couple of seconds in raising a few questions. Is there a relationship between mood and food? Answer is yes, clearly. I mean, today everybody is quite depressed and concerned and everything wrong. The mind is thinking everything that is not right. Do you think that you will not eat food? You will. If you're eating 5 meals a day, you will continue to have 4 meals and plus a lot of chocolate and a lot of desserts, a lot of sugar. Will it impact your buying behavior? Yes, you'll look for more value, you look for more discounts, more promotions, and you will look to buy on internet, whether you're sitting at home or not. What's important is to understand this is war with the omnipresent. If your opponent was absolutely visible to you, you could fight that war. How do you fight a war when this person is or this virus is not visible to you? Right? So are you thinking that this is going to go away in 3 months, 6 months? Answer is no. It's here to stay with us. And how long? All of us are guessing. Right from Trump to Mr. Modi, everybody is guessing it's going to last for shortest possible time and hoping that we'll bounce back quickly. Will we bounce back is the question. We will only bounce back collectively or we will not bounce back. It is an emotional decision. It's a sentimental decision. It's a conviction of people that will make the world change or not. That's what's going to happen. So what's emerging? I mean, again, this is not emerging because of COVID. It's just accelerating because of COVID. If you look at various research, it has been proven that last couple of years, people have been focused on foods that heal, foods that have high nutrition values. People are more conscious, more aware of what they should be eating. People are also aware, conscious of where the food is originating from. So if you see there is a huge shift on people buying either hydroponics or buying food which is organic, it's essentially because they believe that the world has to change if we all have to survive longer. We have to consume less resources. That's why people are getting more and more bothered about it. It's not because of COVID. Plant-forward diets has been a trend in the West. It's a growing trend in the East. There are quite a few restaurants in Bombay or India, I may say. They focus on plant-forward diets. It does not mean vegetarianism. It means low on meats, but high on plants. So those restaurants command high value. They have completely different audience. They're very aware audience. They're willing to pay for it. So food security, coming to food security is another issue which governments have been dabbling with. How do they manage it? Post-COVID, that's become a larger concern. Should we be importing food? I mean, I'm sitting in Singapore, everything is imported. There's nothing which is, very little, if at all, leaves, lettuce and spinach is grown in Singapore, everything else is imported. How do we survive in an environment like this? So it's giving place to more and more food business. It's giving more and more reason for people to eat well, more and more people for being considerate about what they eat, how they consume, where they consume from. To answer your question, are we in business? Absolutely, we are in business. Are we in business for today and for eternity? Is any of us going to survive without food? Answer is no. Now, the larger question is, what am I doing to ride that wave? Am I going to continue to run my business the way it was? Yes, you can. Will I survive? Maybe. But if I am riding the wave, if I change, if I inform myself better, if I do my research more, and if I am more aware, I cover more awareness for my audience, then absolutely I'm in the business. I'm in a new world and new age business. So in short, I can go through each and every point, but to simplify this conversation, there will be disruption beyond belief, whether it is in the way food is consumed, who your target audience is, what kind of transparency, what kind of communication your customers are expecting from you, and how rapidly your customer will move from analog to digital. Okay, in many countries, um, countries went from desktop straight to mobile. There was a era of tablets and laptops. They've completely disowned that era. So the point is, this is going to happen more and more. And what are you doing to get ready to ride that wave as an entrepreneur? And how are you hugging on to your customer? That's the important point. Just to prove my point on the previous slide, it's not new. This is an old slide. This research said that global economy on a sharing, and shared economy model is moving to 6 trillion. That's the disruption it will create, right? So I can tell you that the largest food service operators in India and the global space, I've worked with them before, 20 billion pound company and 20 billion pound euro companies, they never believed that their business could go down to 15%. Because they cooked on clients' premises. Today those premises don't exist, and they have no idea of how to get back into business. The point is, if you do not understand where your industry is heading, you can go anywhere. If you understand where your consumer is, what your business is, and you're sticking to your basics, you will continue to survive. I will pause there and give you an analogy. We are a very young business. Cloudkitch started in Bombay in January. We operated till mid of March, literally 75, 80 days of operation. And then we were under lockdown situation. In April, we were wondering what should we do. And we were just thinking about ideas. We were blessed to serve 50,000 meals for CSR activity for a corporate. And it changed the scenario for us. We were not built, our original order was 100,000 meals a day, and our kitchens were not built to manage that capacity. If we had managed that capacity, and our kitchens are built to that capacity, we would have covered our 2 years budget. We wouldn't be looking back ever. So the point is, you have to be in a position to dynamically understand where your market is shifting and what you can do about it. We spent in last 75, 80 days, we've spent 2,000 man hours on training, productivity improvement, innovation. That's what we've spent our time and energy on. And we are surviving, we're running the business. Will we run forever? I don't know, but so far we're doing well. Touch wood, thank you. Just to make a point, you've been hearing about contactless, cashless, digital, all those kind of buzzwords in last 3 months. Reality is they existed. Nobody bothered about them. Nobody cared about them. The only ones who cared about is in the age groups of 18 to 24, who were the largest consumers of digital media. They understood how to manage a aggregator, how to order from a phone or a technology platform. Those customers 18 to 24 will grow older and they will continue to grow the business. The next generation that comes behind them will continue to grow that business. So point being, we understood that restaurant business is not restaurant business, it's an experience business. It's a business where I want to consume an experience. I want to be elated whenever my mood is good or bad, it doesn't matter, right? That consumption can happen at work or at home, or with friends, or with my colleagues. So are you able to position yourself in that manner? Yes, you can. You need to think deeper. Some more facts. It's not a new trend. This is a Deloitte research which was conducted 2 years back. The average spend on technology was growing 20% year on year. It's not new. It's just that with COVID in last 3 months, the average spend on technology, higher average checks, our average checks have gone up 3 times pre-COVID days, but our number of orders have gone down. So people are spending more on technology, rather they're buying food on technology platforms 3 times more than they were buying in March, which is an interesting situation to be in. Again, the point is that so long as your menu or your food or your product is something that I care about, I will come back to you. So focus on the basics. Interestingly, in last 2 months, the hotels went from delivering experiences within the hotels at their 5-star restaurants to delivering at home, right? That is, you have increased competition now. Your competition is changing. You're not fighting the neighborhood restaurant owner. You're fighting the big boys now. So you have to put up the game. You have to put up the fight differently now. Before I go on to speak more about how this industry trend is changing, I must tell you just a quick one is that any business you are in, whether it's a hotel, hospitality, restaurant, inspiration from your co-business colleagues is all about sharing economy. If you believe that you are going to be 100% owner of the business and make 100% profits, those days are gone. Today, it's all about sharing the business. It's all about sharing the risks. It's all about sharing how much money can I make. The more you share, the larger the pie becomes. The market expands faster and rapidly. Over to you, Suchit. Thanks.
Thank you, Kumar. It's interesting to note how you mentioned the impact of Netflix on restaurants in the US. I hadn't appreciated that. We all are fans of Netflix, and I'm sure during the lockdown, we've all consumed terabytes of data through Netflix. So thank you for that. And I think the takeaway from your presentation is about the fact that regardless of whether there is a COVID or pandemic, businesses need to be alert about macro trends that are changing and how that can be capitalized on. So thank you for that. So we'll now move on to some questions. If I could perhaps ask a question, and with paucity of time, if you could answer the question, also give us a golden nugget of what you think the attendees of the conference. And that one question is to Abhijeet. What are the tangible resources that are available to a hotel owner to survive? In this time, it's all about cash flow. It's all about survival. So what is it really that is tangible?
The first thing is the conservation of cash. With the shrinkage in demand, one of the things is you have to shrink the operations till demand catches up. That has a direct impact on your fixed and variable costs. The other thing is to leverage your existing customer base. I was reading a slide somewhere where in Japan a few years ago, there was a shrinkage in demand due to some similar health outbreak. And a lot of hotels actually did advanced discounting, and then they targeted the demand to come back in. And then they managed to hike the prices as the demand went up. So the tangible asset is your existing customer base who has been frequenting. They are the most likely ones to come back to you. So it is best to have that data ready, know who are your frequent users, and engage with them in a meaningful way where you can convince them that you're able to provide clinically clean hygiene with warm hospitality. They experience your hospitality already. Just focus on the cleanliness aspect, and your own customers would come back. You don't have to look for new ones at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Abhijeet. Moving on to Shreenath, I think what the attendees here would be interested in knowing is, as a large corporate buyer, uh, where are you in terms of demand? Have you made any internal changes to your operations that you will become less of a buyer? Or if you are going to be the same buyer as pre-pandemic, what is it that you're looking for in your hotels in terms of the safety and the hygiene aspects for your employees visiting these hotels?
Well, so I'll address that question in two ways, Sujit. One is in terms of what we expect from the hotels, from the hotel companies, and second is what is it that we are expecting ourselves from the hotels. So what we expect from the hotels is a certain level of confidence to come to us, to approach us, and give us that kind of confidence, saying that employees are safe with us, probably safer than they would be at their homes. If hotels, and it's not just the kind of hotels that we are in touch with, most of our consumption is with branded hotels. And there is a reason for that. The kind of SOPs that brands follow are extremely important. The way they share that with us is extremely important, which goes to the point which Abhijeet was mentioning earlier, is to, during this kind of a pandemic, it would be very easy for hotels to just shrivel up and go into a corner, especially with standalone and medium SME hotels, with standalone hotels which are not really associated with the brand, but with a good offerings. I would suggest that they should not do that. They should communicate even more with their corporates, with their customers, come out with mediums of communication like social media, build video clippets with the kind of SOPs that they have built. Use this time to get ready, because suddenly normalcy will hit them and they would not know where to look for. And those hotels which are prepared and which have taken this time to prepare themselves with things like contactless check-in, check-out, going digital as far as the entire employee journey is concerned. And it's not only restricted to medium hotels. High-end hotels. There are business hotels which we also use, which are at a little less than luxury, but typically more of conference hotels. Are the expectations the same as what they were earlier? No, there is a change. Are we expecting the waiter to serve you in the same manner as he used to do earlier? Would he come and unravel a napkin and keep it on your lap? He would not, and that is not appreciated now. So the sense of luxury has changed. Even things like what you would about 12 years ago, when the new norms of security were introduced in hotels across India because of the 26/11 incidents in Bombay, the terrorist attack. We used to feel it's an eyesore to have an X-ray machine at the entrance of a hotel. It's an eyesore. It's a bad experience, we used to think. Now it's become a part and parcel of the hotel design to have that as a part of the entry experience. And the more aware and the more conscious you are of what kind of experience the customer is going through in something that you can't avoid, I think one would be better prepared. Now, this is the time to prepare oneself for the future, understand what the changes are. This is what I would like to say to the hotel owners. From a change perspective of what the hotels can expect from the business is that corporates like us will not stop buying, but they will start buying something new. What they would start buying is, I'll give you a live example. A couple of days ago, we have come across a requirement for roughly about 200 events globally of about 15 packs each. While earlier these events used to be live events, suddenly these events have become online. But these online events also have a hotel component in it. Now, this kind of an RFP, would hotels be prepared to take it? Would they even know that this kind of a demand exists? They would know only if they reach out, and they continue reaching out to their corporate clients even during this time. Engage with them and continuously have that dialogue, either through video conferencing or through webinars like this. There are some brands which have already started doing that. Unfortunately, some of the Indian brands have not done that. Indian hotel brands have not done that. I think it's high time that they start doing that, start reaching out to their corporate customers. I think what Kumar also mentioned is that your existing customers are the ones who will show you the direction. Not in these words, he mentioned something, it was a takeaway that I took, that they will show you the direction as to what the future is going to be. And I think it's time to listen with your ear to the ground.
Thank you, Shreenath. Moving on to Kumar. Question here is, again, we're in the digital world, and you elaborated on various digital aspects of changes to the business. But how does the business gain trust of the consumer? Is it the brand, or is there something beyond that?
Interesting. Clearly, it's one. The brand is a assurance that I will be looked after. Brand is assurance that I will get the safety, security, the quality. That's one of the key aspects of it. But if I'm not a brand, or if I'm not a popular brand, what's important is that I'm able to communicate what have I done to change, or I mean, it's just a question of communicating even more than before. It's not about marketing, it's about communicating what am I doing to keep you safe, what steps have I taken. So we have come up with our own, at least in our business, we have our own quality assurance certification. It's not a certification, but it's a quality assurance. We say that we take these 8 steps to keep you safe. With every order, with every meal, with every call, we say that these are the 8 steps we've taken to keep you safe, and here is the evidence. So there is a proof of concept there. The second thing is, what we've done is we've gone to Chris and taken his help to certify our place for workplace safety. That's an important aspect of communication to our customers, that you are consuming from a safe place, better place, and you'll always be looked after well. That's what we have done. I just want to add something which you didn't ask me, but reality is that the consumer is now consuming virtually. Last week there was a company who was celebrating their 4th anniversary, and we delivered cakes to their employees. They did a virtual celebration. We're doing virtual birthdays, serving meals to your friends while you're cutting a cake. So that's a reality now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think finally to Chris, people being the biggest asset for any business. The question to you is, what is exactly the nature of the investment a company should make in its employees in order to ensure that that triggers the revival of the business?
Sure. It's actually really surprisingly cheap. It's 1,000 rupees per employee for a one-time exercise. And it's about 1,800 rupees per employee for an annual plan. What that gets you is all your employees get screened for COVID. They undergo a physical health check that not just tells you if they're showing direct and indirect symptoms for COVID, but it also checks their overall health. Their propensity to fall sick, their propensity for cardiovascular diseases, or diabetes, et cetera, everything that affects your future productivity from that employee. It also gets that individual vaccinated according to the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. I just want to take a moment and share my screen so you're able to get a sense of what some of our other clients have done. Are you able to see this? Okay, so that's our Instagram page right there. That's cube.health if you're on Instagram. But what some of the other brands have done is they've used social media to actually communicate. So that's Yawacha, whom, if you follow, had an incident about 3 weeks ago. So they reached out to us and said that, look, we need to live with this COVID situation right now. And at the same time, we want to be able to communicate to our customers. And what they ended up doing was going through this entire exercise with us, where we went to each of their employees. We got them completely screened. The whole turnaround time was less than 5 business days, and they were able to get back on their business. doing this for some of the largest chains, now also tagging every delivery with the healthy workplace certification. Again, the focus is providing safety and assurance. So to answer your question, Suchit, the cost is surprisingly cheap, but more importantly, every employee that works for these companies now knows that that their employer is a company that cares, and it has reduced the chances of attrition because those employees now want to stay with companies that are actually taking care of their health. In fact, they've gone back to their employers and their HR, asking them and talking to them and saying, look, how can I ensure that you are able to take care of my family members as well? And that's really where we're kind of coming from. Over to you.
Great, thank you. Well, I think we just about a couple of minutes left for the webinar time left. Thank you to all panelists and also to the attendees who've come, and hopefully this was useful. And just as a quick summation, Abhijeet, thank you for your ever optimistic view on where the demands are, and I think that's indeed the right attitude to take at the moment. Demand is compressed, not evaporized, and it's going to bounce back. And thank you to Shreenath for giving us a perspective on what a large hotel buyer is looking for at this moment, and it's encouraging to see that you will be looking to continue to buy the hotel rooms moving forward. And Kumar, it's been very interesting to understand that obviously whether there's a COVID or pandemic or not, how business needs to be attuned to the macro changes happening in the industry and use of technology. And Chris, it goes without saying that health of the employees is paramount, which then obviously leads on to kickstarting new business. I think as that as a summation, I have a point in terms for all the hoteliers and businesses coming in from a financial services background. I think this is also a time when you may want to be reaching out to see who are there as equity investors, who could potentially be coming in to join you. Much the way we talk about shared economy and resources, I think there's also perhaps a need for you to look at bringing in investors' cash flow. Is the most critical aspect at this moment, as we all know. And I think it's also very important as captains of the ships that we all run, that we can keep the employees on the payroll. And I think it's very important that we all appreciate that employees at the end of the day are following orders. And if they are chucked off the ship, they have no place to go. So recapitalizing the business, that's what we're advising all our clients as well, is to go out there, and it doesn't matter what the valuation is. Don't hang on to valuation. Get the cash in the bank so you can keep the ship afloat. And that's really where it should be. But and our view also is that in the next 3 to 6 months, or at least by the next phase after lockdown, is going to be the point where the vaccine is going to come out, and we're going to definitely see a change, a pivoting in the human mentality in terms of going out and spending money or going back to restaurants, etc. So hopefully we will pass this too, shall pass, and we shall survive. Thank you once again for attending, and we look forward to the next webinar, whenever that is. Stay safe and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the interaction. Thank you.